Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? This is Frost Lynx from Frost Lynx Gaming, and we are here in the studio with a Mr. Echo Kraft. Today, we're going to be talking, with Echo Kraft, and we want to see, influences. We want to see, just what's going on in the mind of Echo Kraft. So, Echo Kraft, how you doing?
Good, man. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Let me start right off and say, the album is incredible.
Thank you.
If you haven't listened to this, ladies and gentlemen, Ribbon of Time is phenomenal. Every song on the album should be in a movie. I want to know where these influences come from for this album. It's such a well built album, and it has such great structure, and it speaks volumes on the craft that you take part in.
Craft,
So,
I see where you went there.
yeah, no, of course, right? But yeah, talk to me about the influences, because this is stuff that I don't think a lot of people have heard before, and I don't think that very many people understand the direction of this movement now with synthwave, drum and bass, and instrumental. I think drum and bass is definitely out there, but synthwave and instrumental seems to be coming back.
Yeah, it is actually. Well, let's start off with the first question you asked me. I've been doing electronic music for a long time. I also played in a bunch of heavy metal bands. I had a really cool band that we were vampires for a while, which was kind of fun, called Sub 7 and the Undead. We're also on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify. Check us out, Bandcamp. Little crappy plug there.
Of course.
But no, so Echo Kraft is actually an album that I had done years ago, and I named the album Echo Kraft, and I was under a different artist name at that time. Not going to mention it, don't need to, but I liked the name. So what I did was I said, this would be a really cool name for either a band or a project. So I went with Echo Kraft. The other part of the question was, because that was like a 4-part question,
Yeah.
dude. So... So the other part of the question is the fact that, I have a friend that I work with, and we become very good friends, and he also owns the record label that I'm on, TMP Records. And he asked me one day, he says, "Hey, listen, I got a question for you." He says, "Can you sound like this?" And he had an iPad, and he went onto his iPad and he brought up Stranger Things, the TV show on Netflix, which is
show.
So amazing. It is. It's
yeah.
awesome.
The music is incredible.
Yeah. So he plays me the Stranger Things theme, and I sat there and I died because I didn't even know what Stranger Things was. And I listened to it and I went, I can do this in my sleep, dude. This is what I do. This is the kind of stuff that I do. And he didn't know that. He had heard some of my electronic stuff, but it really wasn't in that vein or that genre. So I said, yeah, I love this. So I actually downloaded the album and I listened to it. Survive, they're amazing. That's how I got turned on to them. And I listened to it, and I didn't want to copy it. I wanted to bring my own flavor to it. So I wrote the first track, A Ribbon of Time, which is the title track off Echo Kraft's album. And I sent it to him. I did it within 3 hours and sent it to him that night. That's the kind of work ethic I have. If you give me an idea, you put it in my head, I'm gonna go all the way. And he said, "All right, this is great. I love this. Let's do a 5-song EP." And he was going to sign me to the label and do a publishing deal. And so I messaged him within a couple of days, and I said, "Well, can we do a whole album?" And he went, "Why?" I said, "Because I already wrote the whole album." So I just kind of went off. I just did a tailspin and just started writing, and I was so influenced by what he had me listen to that I just went to town, and the ideas just started shooting out of my head. Now, Echo Kraft is kind of like, an Echo Kraft is kind of like a satellite kind of spaceship kind of thing. I always kind of envisioned where this traveler through space and time would go out seeking music from other worlds and other beings, and echo that back to his ship. And he's kind of like a collector of music from other worlds, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept. So that's kind of who I am. I'm kind of a collector of sound and music. So that's kind of what spawned that whole idea, was Manny actually just saying, "Hey man, you want to try this?" You know what I mean?
So this basically just all started from like someone just saying, "Hey, why don't we see what we can do?"
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned influences, and we talked about the, survive. What influences you the most, whether it's in the industry, not in the industry, on TV, like just walking down the street and seeing somebody, anything at all that is pulling this? Because I've listened to the entire album 1,000 times, and it's in such a different, almost universe from what a lot of stuff out there is, and it's hard to describe. So I can't think of a lot of people that would necessarily influence you. It almost feels like this is all just coming straight from you. But I mean, if you have somebody that is in your mind, or that kind of gives you that strive. Like let me see
Right.
what you can do. You know what I mean? Anyone at all, or even if it's not even in the industry or anything like that. I mean.
Well, no, I mean, that's a huge compliment, and thank you for that, because I want to be original. I don't want to copy anybody else. I'm influenced by a ton of different stuff, man. I love classical music. I love movie soundtracks. I'm a gamer. I love games. One of my heroes, and that's what I like to call him, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, absolutely mind-blowing.
Oh,
I mean,
monster, complete monster.
the guy, like, can create sound out of a toilet flushing, for God's sake, and it'll sound good. You know what I mean?
No,
He's a master of sound and noise, and huge influence in my life. But I'm also a child of the '80s. So, I grew up. The '80s was my heyday. Sometimes I tell people when my mind is racing and I don't answer their question right away, I just look at them and say, yeah, well, I did a lot of damage in the '80s, so that's what you're gonna have to deal with today. So, but no, I really truly love that heavy metal. I've always been a metal guy, but I love synthesizers, and the '80s was just filled with synthesizers. I mean, it was like all of a sudden, people got their hands on a Moog, mini Moog, and just went to town, and drum machines came out of the '80s, and all this stuff just kind of exploded, and everybody was just experimenting. Nobody really. The '80s wasn't like, oh, hey, it's the '80s sound. That's not how we thought in the '80s. It was like, hey, what can I do with this piece of equipment? How can I make this sound different? Of course, you had, the genre on the radio and stuff that, it was promoting all this pop '80s synth stuff.
Yeah, a lot of pop did have some of that little synth in the background and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you had you had bands that came out of the '80s, Joy Division. You had I'm trying to think, all these other like great artists that I grew up with, and right now, again, because I did a lot of damage in the '80s, my brain is not functioning right now to think of all that stuff.
We can forgive you.
Thank you. But I mean, you had Human League, you had Thomas Dolby, you had all these pioneers of synth music. One of my favorite people who did things with synths was Gary Newman, who wrote, In Cars was his biggest hit. Totally influenced by him. I love Gary Newman's new stuff, which is very dark industrial kind of stuff, but all synth based. And there's guitars in there, and I love how the '80s mishmashed everything together, which was really cool. So I mean, today's synthwave, bands like Carpenter Brute, love those guys. Perturbator, amazing.
Oh, Perturbator is great.
Yeah, then you have these big synth wave bands like Dynatron, which those guys just blow me away. I just downloaded their whole catalog because I can't get enough of their stuff. very synth generated. They throw in some heavy duty distorted guitars and things like that as well, which I'm gonna start doing in the next album that I'm gonna be working on. Need to get this album out there. If anybody wants to know this too, there are two versions of A Ribbon of Time, Echo Kraft, A Ribbon of Time, and one of them is the deluxe version. There's 10 tracks on the original version, but the deluxe version has 18 tracks on it. And the record label said, "Hey man, we're gonna do some singles. Let's pop some singles out there." And we ended up putting them together and calling it the deluxe version. And one of the number one songs right now on Apple Music and on Spotify is "Stop the Hate," which was a single that wasn't on the
Great
original.
track.
Thank you. And it's kind of a protest kind of political song, and I don't do that kind of thing. That's not my bag. I leave the politics to the politicians. But I just saw this really huge influx of all this bad stuff going on about the new president and all these people that were hating on each other, friends unfriending each other from Facebook and things like that.
Yeah,
and
there was a lot of that. There was.
It upset
It was
me.
surprising, yeah.
And it still upsets me how people are so angry about certain things, and I don't like to see that kind of stuff. So that song was just influenced by all the turmoil and things that were happening. But yeah, the deluxe version has 18 songs on it. A lot of fun to do, and the next album that I'm working on, like I said, got to keep that Ribbon of Time album going, but I've already started working on the next album.
Now what is the next album, Mag? I mean, can you talk about it? Like, is this something that is
No.
out there? Of course you're gonna say that, of course.
Well, I'd rather not. I don't. That's kind of. I've been in the industry in a long time, and I don't want to kind of jinx myself with what the name of the album was. Hello, that was interesting. So yeah, was that one of my synths going off? Sometimes they do that. They have a mind of their own.
Sounded like an Apple text message.
Oh, okay. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I don't want to kind of jinx myself in any way. I will tell you that it's probably gonna be in the Ribbon of Time genre, but it's gonna have little twists and turns to it because I love to experiment with sound, and I have a brand new synth that I bought that I'm gonna be incorporating a lot into that album. And because I already had some songs written for that album that I actually rewrote because of this new synth that I bought, which is kind of weird, but it's like an artist, a painter, he
Of course.
all of a sudden discovers a new color and decides, hey, maybe this will look cool on this,
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm doing. And that's one of the things you would ask me about also, what's the process? And with me, it could be anything. I could just be banging out some stuff on a drum machine going, hey, this influences me to write a song. I could hear a sound like that bing sound that we just heard. I know that sounds silly, but that sound would actually trigger to do something else. I'll be sitting at a synth and I'll get lost in just creating sounds. That's why I love analog synthesizers. Synths with knobs attract me because I can tweak things and get them to shape the way I want, and I love doing that. I'm really happy that I'm doing this interview right now because one of the things that always bothers me is when artists say, "Oh, I don't use presets, man." And I just sit there and go, well, who'd do to you? Like, why not? There's some amazing presets on synthesizers. Whether you tweak them a little bit, or maybe the preset, you just wrote an entire song around that preset. When I hear an entire song done with presets and loops, then I kind of go, okay, man, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But sometimes a preset, I'll use a preset. I love using Alchemy. I use Logic Pro. 10. Alchemy is a synthesizer that was made by Camel Music, and Apple bought them because they were kind of going under. And I love that synthesizer. And I'll go in and I'll hear something like a big pad sound, and I'll go, damn, that sounds amazing. I might go in and tweak it just a little bit, but I'll use that preset because it sounds amazing. I mean, why not use it? You know what I mean?
And you can do so much with so little.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's funny you should say that because one of the new songs on the new album, I pretty much wrote the entire song, and I let you hear one of the clips from it, and it's called Tokyo Glow. There's a spoiler for you.
Great name.
Thanks.
I love anything Tokyo.
Tokyo Glow was written. I was bored one night. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and I just started writing using Alchemy on my computer, and the only thing that actually is the only piece of equipment that I actually used on that song was my Roland TR9. That was the only thing, a TR09, sorry. That was the only thing that I used to get the drum sounds on there. Everything else was done through the computer. So I mean, it doesn't matter where you get your sounds from or your influences from. It's what you do with them. It's how you react to them and how they react to each other. That's the thing. So I mean that's basically how I create, and to me it's just synthesizers. What I love about synthesizers are you never get bored.
I can see that. looking around the studio right now. I mean, there's so many buttons and knobs and plugs and stuff I don't even know how to describe, and it just seems like you could get lost.
Well, yeah, I mean, and let me tell you, I'll play one synth and get lost in it for over an hour and didn't record anything.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
And I'll sit there and go, literally my eyes will be bleeding because I'll be looking at the knobs and stuff and just playing away and just get totally lost in space and time with a synthesizer. And that's fun, but it's also frustrating because I sit there and go, shit, I didn't record that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try to hit record all the time just so I can, get that sound or that creation. Sometimes I'll wake up the next day and I'll play it back and it's like, dude, what were there freaking bugs in your head? Like, that's horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I keep it. I never delete really anything I create because I'll never know if I'm going to use it. You know what I mean? I have a 4-drive like RAID system here that's just loaded with music. There's got to be 400 or 500 pieces on there. I don't know if it's all songs, but it's just experimental stuff. And I'll go back to it and go, oh, that sounds great. I'm going to use this. You know what I mean? And I there's some guys out there like Cell Dweller and guys like that.
Cell Dweller.
Another influence.
Oh, yeah.
His new project, Scandroid, 80s synth pop.
Dude, it's
really
coming
cool.
back. It's really coming back.
It is.
Full swing. I mean, it's in games. It's everywhere, man.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he does the same thing. He'll just tweak away on a synth. I mean, his modular system takes up my whole room. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he'll just. I was watching an interview with him, and he says the same thing, man. He says, and what I love about Clayton is he'll turn around and I totally identified with this guy one day in an interview I was watching of him, and he said, "I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just do stuff, and it happens." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
sometimes that's the best stuff.
And I laugh because I go, "Yeah, man, that's me. Like I totally identify with that. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I just like, oh, this sounds good. I think I'll use it."
Yeah. We talked to so far about the here and now, and past influences and stuff like that. But I gotta ask, like, where do you want to go with this? What do you want to do, accomplish? I mean, it can be anything. You could tell me tomorrow you just want to you want to work somewhere else and do something else, and you could make rock music and do whatever you want. But where does Echo Kraft go from here? Where do you see yourself? I mean, is it games? Is it movies? Is it just, influencing other artists? What is it?
Well, first of all, to influence other artists is an honor, is a great joy, because when I have somebody say to me, "How do I do this?" or "How do I make this sound?" or show me something. I really like what you do. I want to do that. Some artists will be like, well, you got to go through you got to spend time and you got to go through the ranks and all this bullshit, where it's just like, hey man, the guy just wants to learn how to do something. Like, show him.
Yeah.
I love that, and I feel like a teacher in a way, I guess, because I'm always learning, man. I don't know everything. I'm constantly watching videos on YouTube's of other artists, and I love that. I love being able to get in somebody else's head and say, oh, that's how they did that. And if somebody comes up to me and asks me that, that's an honor,
Oh, for sure.
And I just find that's really cool. And like I said, there are a lot of people out there that, call themselves artists, that are just really, kind of, they brush you off. They don't have time to talk to you, I don't believe in that. I think, somebody asks you a question, it might be an answer, a minute or 2 minute answer, and you've influenced that person. That's cool. You know what I mean?
It's a great mentality to have.
Yeah, I try to have that. I've been, like I said, I've been through a lot of stuff in the music industry. I was kind of one of those people, with the big head and the ego, and finally, when that project in the '80s blew up, and we disbanded and everything, my whole world came crashing down, and I realized I was just a person, and ego can destroy people. And I try not to have an ego anymore. I try to keep my feet on the ground, and where I want to go. Well, I've been punching at the music bag for a long time, man. And rock stardom was cool back when you're a kid and you're 18, and you're looking at your favorite band on TV or whatever, and you're like, God, I want to be like that.
When MTV actually had TV, actually
had music,
had music videos and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
I go even back further than MTV. I'm going to date myself here. Don Kirshner's rock concert. Every Saturday night it was on. I'd stay up late and watch it, and I'd see, my favorite bands like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple would be on there, and I'd be like, God, I want to be like that. Limousine dreams, as I like to call it. The back of a limousine, sex, drugs, rock and roll, chicks, the whole 9 yards. Today, I have a more clear vision of what I want. I'm older. I've been through a lot. I've been married twice. Been through deaths in life. And as you go through these things, I have a daughter who's handicapped. She's awesome. She's my little buddy. But as you go through things in life, you start to change and see things. Being a rock star is something that I've always dreamed of being. But today, I like sitting in my little studio, creating, someday hopefully to be in a bigger studio with more gear. I love gear. I'm a gear.
Yeah,
hog.
we can tell.
I'm a gear hog. What can I say?
Maybe in the shot it doesn't show it all, but there's a lot.
No, clearly
there's
not. It's not all in here. I don't think.
No, not even close.
There's a few guitars out in the hallway and shit too.
Yeah.
But I where I want to go is, it's like I really would like to get into soundtrack. I've done some independent films, not porn. When I say independent films, people think,
yeah, come on, this isn't a family show. Yeah, you can
what
tell
is
me,
it? Yeah, no, seriously. But independent films, I did a couple of sci-fi independent films. I did a dramatic, kind of horror kind of film. Love doing that, working with film people. It's so much fun because they'll tell you something like for instance, a guy Alex that I work with, Alex Cruz, great director, great filmmaker. He said, "Hey man, I'm doing a chase scene. This is what I need." So I write this chase music, and like, great, I'm going to give it to him. And I'm thinking chase scene. Well, it's going to last what? 10 minutes, yeah. Right? Chase scenes usually only last about 2 minutes. On film, it seems like forever because you're watching it. He wanted an hour's worth of music for a 2-minute chase scene. Wasn't even 2 minutes. And I was like, what? I delivered. Man's paying me, right?
Of course.
And what I thought he was going to use for chase music was completely different. Because he took a snippet of music that I thought was fit for chase at all, And then when I saw it on the screen, and I went, oh, that's cool. That fits. Directors have a different mindset than musicians, film directors, and so it's exciting to me. I like doing stuff like that. I want to do more. I would love to get into the gaming industry. Like I said, I'm a gamer. I've been playing games since Pong, so that's going to date me even more.
So you've been around since the beginning, huh?
Yeah, my generation created games, man. So yeah, playing games. You know, I'm an avid gamer. I'm not like, you know, I mean, there's some guys out there, and I'm sitting in front of one right now who's, you know, a game shark. You know, guys that I work with. Connor and those guys. I mean, they're awesome gamers. I watch some of their Twitch feeds and stuff, and I sit there and go, "Wow, these guys are good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I game because I enjoy it, and I have fun with it. You know.
Of course.
But I love the music. I love the big soundtrack stuff is amazing. I would love to deal with stuff like that. But what I really get off on when I'm playing a game is when I'm walking into a room and all of a sudden I hear this really creepy shit.
Yeah.
You know, and I go,
yeah, no, 100%.
and it's all synths, and I go, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And I get influenced by stuff like that. Dead Space was one of my favorite
Oh my
games because
God.
the music in Dead Space is so freaking creepy.
Oh yeah.
You know,
It'll like cut off and then it cuts
Yeah.
in and it just kind of builds up, and the second you hear it, you're just like, oh man, something's coming.
and I haven't gotten Resident Evil yet, but I intend to get that. The Last of Us, the music in The Last of Us was so awesome.
Oh yeah. The emotional
Yeah.
power behind it. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that game just, I mean, right from the get-go, from the beginning scene of if anybody's not played it, I won't spoil it, but I got emotional. I was like,
Yeah.
crap,
Oh, me
really?
too. Oh,
like,
yeah. First time I've gotten that attached to a character
Right?
that quick, and I've just been like, geez, like.
and then it cuts to the intro, and I went, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, and that was intense, man. And if you have a child out there and you experience that, as I have a daughter, and I was just like blown, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, and then it cuts to the future, and you just sit there going, wow, that was intense.
Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah.
You know, it's so.
So that's kind of where I want to go. I mean, I continue want to put out music, and I continue to want to, I want to get into that to that whole scene of movie making, and hell, I'll do a commercial. I don't care, man. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of TV. I get influenced by a lot of TV stuff. And the shows that are on TV now are just stupid. There's so many. I just started watching the show Into the Badlands. I'm kind of digging it. You know what I mean? It's
I've seen it, yeah.
about samurais in the future.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of an odd concept.
It's very strange.
Yeah,
you know what I
did
mean?
like
But
it.
then think about it. Like, there's, how much ammo are you going to have left?
Yeah.
Nobody's making it anymore.
That's true. That's true.
So you take into swords again. You know what I mean? So interesting, and I studied martial arts for 7 years of my adult life, so kind of dig the samurai thing, and it's kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where, it's coming back in terms of like all like the 80s style music, and since we've been talking about that stuff, but like even Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, like the zombies in the first one, the arcade, it's incredible.
It's so much fun.
It really is. It's unbelievable how this kind of music has not just come back to where it was in the 80s and even before, but it's exploded. But I think a lot of people still don't know about it. I think the people that have had that music in the past influence them, or were around for that type of music, or even somebody who's a little bit older than me. I was in the 80s, but not for long. It's different. It feels like this is something that's not just going to be necessarily a phase. I think a lot of generations have their own, individual, kind of styles and feels. But I think that we're taking our influences now and putting them on that, that kind of 80s retro analog synth drum and bass and the stuff that people are coming out with now. I mean, you mentioned, Perturbator and stuff like that. I mean,
it's like one guy.
Yeah, it's mind
from France.
Sounds
He's
like
amazing.
12 guys in a studio,
right?
You know what I mean?
Well, then you
get blown away.
Then you have the 4 guys from Survive that, I mean, they're from Texas and they got to know each other through a store.
Yeah.
In Texas,
yeah.
And then they ended up doing the soundtrack for Stranger Things. I mean, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's so awesome.
It's incredible. And that's why I think a lot of people need to know, and I don't think they should. I mean, they need to know your music. Even if someone doesn't necessarily listen to your music now or know even of this type of music, like, how would you describe it and bring this to them? In the foreground. What would you say to someone that's never heard this music or has heard this music but maybe wants to try to give you a listen? Like, how would you pull them in? How would you kind of just throw yourself out there?
That's a really good question, man.
Yeah, I try.
Well, I mean, it's funny because like people will look at me and they'll see like the skulls and all this stuff on my hands and the tattoos and things like that, and they'll say, "Oh, you have a band?" And I'm like, "Well, I had a band, but now I'm doing a solo thing." And they'll be like, "Oh, so what's it like, and it's like, no, I don't growl, but no, it's nothing that you would think, don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's nothing what you would think that I would do. Because a lot of the stuff, I loved, Manny, the owner of the record label, said one day to somebody, Jay writes symphonies in synthesizers. And I just thought that was a really cool thing to say, and I appreciate it.
I do like that.
And that was nice. Symphonies, no, but that was nice. But so when I have people listen to it, they get put off by it and they go, wow, that's really cool. Like, and then you'll hear some people that are older that will actually say, that kind of reminds me of like the mid 60s, early 70s kind of, when switched on Bach and all that stuff was coming out, because Bob Moog was building synthesizers, and you had Bob Moog, you had the ARP company, and you had all of these companies starting to emerge, and then all of a sudden you'll hear somebody who's I don't know, gone through the 80s like myself, and they go, oh, this is kind of like blah 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 from the 80s, and I'll go, yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's got a little bit of a twist to it now. There are synth wave bands out there that and musicians out there today that are bringing that back.
Oh, lots.
And like you said, it's coming back. It's rearing its head again. Vinyl's coming back.
Yeah.
Cassettes are coming back.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, what?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a strange time for music. It
really is. It's cool though.
And you hear it in more different, bands. Like, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Birthday Massacre.
Awesome
and
band.
They have this, they bring in these synthesizers and they bring in, also, I don't know the terms for it. You're the music guy, not me, but it's unreal what they do, and it's taken from a different era than what they are. You see them, you look at them, and you're like, oh, these guys are goth. They're gonna play some crazy heavy metal, and they do.
Well, they
and
do.
Then all of a sudden, they throw that synthesizer in there, and you're like, holy shit!
Yeah, and her voice is amazing.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But that's funny that you should say that, because they're a younger group, and that's what I see. That's where the retro thing comes in. I love the '80s. I did.
Oh,
I had fun in the '80s, and I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, everything in the '80s was great. Come on.
Well, not everything. I mean,
haircuts are a little weird. But...
yeah, big hair and mullets. I had a mullet.
Yeah. Party in the back, business in the front.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the '80s was an interesting time because you had a different president in the '80s, Ronald Reagan, who I feel as though and again, I don't want to get political, but you asked my mom. My mom's 89 years old, and unfortunately, her mind isn't what it used to be. But one thing my mom will say, she'll say, the 80s was a good time. We everybody was working, everybody made money, things were fun. Movies were goofy, stupid, but fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Most of my favorite movies are from the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terminator, one of my favorite movies.
Oh God.
Corny, cheesy, cool though.
Yeah.
So I guess so you have these younger people that are coming into the scene going, I love the 80s, man. The 80s were cool. They were fun, So what do? They start digging through mom and dad's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Ma, you listened to this? Or, hey, Dad, you wore this? Or, and all of a sudden, I had somebody actually say this to me the other day. They were at their parents' house. They were probably 22, 23 years old. And they were like, I found my dad's cassette collection. And I was like, wow, really? And they were like, yeah, and he also has a cassette deck. And I started playing the cassettes. And I'm like, that's cool. And they started listening to Human League, which I love Human League. Just something about them. And they were all synth. And I said, oh, I love Human League. I said, they wrote some cool stuff. And they were like, yeah, this was really interesting to me, that this is the music that my parents grew up with and they listened to. And I want more of that.
Yeah.
And I sat there and went, but you can't have more of that because Human League doesn't exist anymore, But I did say, but there's a whole scene with people your age and older that are still writing music like this. And the funny thing is I just saw something recently that the guys from Human League are actually getting together to put an album out. And
that's awesome.
I went, wow.
Yeah. Of course.
And so that's the thing, man. This stuff is starting to come back tenfold. And, vinyl now. I remember getting an LP of one of my favorite bands, and it was a splatter LP. And very rare. Colored records, colored LPs back then were very rare.
Yeah.
So now that's a thing you can order.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got, what was it, Atreyu's The Curse album, and I'm a huge Atreyu fan, and I got one of their newer albums from 2015, and they came on a blue, electric blue, and it looks awesome.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, it's so much better than just the, the black obviously is classic, but
yeah, but
incredible.
To get a picture disc even back then was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, you got that? Where'd you get it? Oh, they only made 200 of them.
Yeah.
So it was a rarity. Today I was looking on, because we're hoping to press my album onto vinyl, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah, big time.
CDs is another thing. Everybody's like, oh, the CD's dead. I was just reading something where there are some countries that don't do downloads. They can't. They don't have Wi-Fi.
Yep.
They're really remote countries, and people are still buying CDs. Another company, a big audio company called Tascam Corporation. Tascam makes mixing consoles, all kinds of stuff. They just started making tape machines again.
I did hear about that.
That's the coolest thing,
crazy,
man.
Yeah.
And one of them is a CD burner plus tape recorder, so you can do either or.
Oh, that's cool.
And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So what did I do? I actually, up in this closet here behind you, I actually have a dual cassette tape recorder that I fired up, turned it on, works. All I need is blank cassettes. So I'm going to be doing a do-it-yourself little project like we used to do back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm going to be creating all the artwork and stuff in the cassettes, and it's going to be something that's going to be a limited run that we're going to do for a ribbon of time. And it's not going to be the deluxe album because that won't fit on a cassette.
Nope.
But
definitely not.
But yeah, we're going to do a limited run of cassettes, hopefully soon, and I'm going to be doing them all myself.
Awesome.
Which I'm really looking forward to because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, man, the whole retro thing is coming back. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how, am I going to thread that needle? I don't know. I don't know where my career is going to go. I don't, I will tell you this. I love music. So I could be 80, 90 years old. Hopefully I'll live that long and I still make music. Whether it goes anywhere or not, whatever, man. I do music because I like to do music. I'm not doing it for somebody else. If you enjoy my stuff, that's an honor. That's awesome. You know what I mean? But I do music because I love to make music.
So I've been thinking.
Oh.
I know it's crazy. I want, and I know anybody that's listening, we talked about, people coming into your music that haven't necessarily listened to it or anything. So let's give them a little bit of that. Right here, right now, let's do live. Let's see, even if it's nothing crazy, even if it's just mind-blowing, whatever you want to do.
Really?
Let's throw some stuff down. Let's do it live. Let's give the people what they want to listen to. And, just go wild. Do whatever you want. That's what we're here.